Hi everyone, this is Linda, and because I had done this design using the MySonnet software to kind of create a design that had a Trapunto kind of effect, I decided I'd find a super design that could be done using Premier+2. It's not quite the same, and it has to do with that super design I used in MySonnet is not available in Premiere 2. So this is going to kind of give you almost the same thing. So we're going to take a super design into digitizing, or actually into create. We're going to create an applique, and we're going to do a couple of different things. So enjoy. Hi everyone, I'm going to try something different for a change. And what I'm going to do is this is what I had originally done using MySonnet, but some of the things you can't do in the Premier+2, so I came up with this one, and it's a little bit different. And if you want to see what that looks like, this is what it looks like. See if you can see this. That's the front side, and using the same basic principles, only I couldn't use that flower that I did in the MySonnet software. I had to use something different, but it's basically the same, and it gives me that Trapunto kind of effect. And if you look, my balloon is kind of up, and so is my rabbit. So we're going to do that, and I'm going to show you how to do that using the Premier+2. So we're going to get started. So to start a new one, I did File and then a new window, and I have a screen here. Now, because some of what I'm going to be doing is got a white, because my bunny rabbit's going to be white, I changed my background color. And to do that, you're going to go to Configure and go to Appearance, and you can change your background to something totally different. And I just went with a gray just so that it would show up in the video. So it's up to you, whatever you want to do. If you want to change it to a pretty color instead of the gray, that's fine too. But at least now you will be able to see everything. So the first thing we're going to do is we're going to go over to Create. When you come over here, you're going to get the SuperDesign Wizard. So we're going to choose a design type, and we don't want anything specific. We're going to start a new design with no picture, and we're going to do Next. And I don't care which one of these come up, it doesn't really matter. And I'm going to just use the 150 by 150 hoop because that's about what size we're going to end up with. And I'm going to do Finish. So the first thing we want to do is we're going to insert a super design. So select Insert Super Design. And I actually went in here and I just typed in line and enter. So I did line for my search and I do enter. And I'm going to look for the little bunny that's got 3 balloons. We're actually only going to do one of the balloons, but for this purpose, we're going to just use it for right now. So I want this about 125 and insert. So he's fairly large, and actually I'm going to end up making some more changes, but let's get started for first getting rid of the excess things. So I'm going to come over here to my film strip, and I'm going to hit Group, and I'm going to do right mouse, and I'm going to do Ungroup, because I don't want anything together. I don't want that part of the balloon, so I'm going to select that, and I'm going to do Delete. I'm going to come through, and that's my running stitch for there, and I actually don't need that one, so I'm going to do Delete. I do need this one. I don't need this one. So I'm going to do right mouse and I'm going to do Delete, or I can hit up the top of and I don't need this one. I'm going to hold my Shift key and I'm going to say I don't need that one. I'm going to go to my Control key because this one I do need. This one I don't need. This one I don't need. And I'm going to do a right mouse button and I'm going to hit Delete. So I was able to skip from here. I ought to keep this one, and that's going to be my balloon. And I'm going to make some changes to my balloon. I'm going to make them a little bit bigger, and I'm going to do some other things. But let's get rid of some of these other things. So the triple stitch is my rabbit, and that's my face. And there's all of the other pieces that make up my face. So you want to know all of those just for purposes later on. So the first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to change my color from a gray that it is right now, and I'm just going to change it into a darker color so we can kind of see it better. And I want to change that to an applique, but I want to make that balloon much larger. So I can actually keep the shape, or I can make it a little bit more round. I'm going to hold my, I'm going to just drag it and make it larger. So he's about like that. And now I need to make him into an applique. So the other thing I'm going to do is I'm going to just select here, and I'm going to make that more of a rounded. Remember, we're making this into an applique, so we have to kind of make this easy to be able to cut your fabric. So I'm going to change those squares, any squares I see, to being circles, just by clicking on them. If you hold your control key and click, it makes it a square point, remember? All right. And again, this is in Premier+2. This is not in my Sonnet. It's different in my Sonnet. So I want to make this into an applique, and I'm actually going to slide that out just a little bit. And so with triple stitch selected over here on the left, I'm going to do a right mouse button, and I'm going to do Properties. I'm going to change this to a satin line, and it's set for 2.5, and I don't want it terribly tight. I'm going to leave that about a 6. And I'm leaving my start points and end points the same. I'm going to go to Applique, Standard Applique, and I can come in here and select my fabric. Now I could just choose a particular one, or I could say Fabric, select here, and then look through the general fabrics that are already loaded. And I just happened to pick on Happy Birthday just because it was something different. And I'm going to do OK. And I'm going to do OK again. And there it is. Now, remember when you're doing an applique and it's got fabric, and if you're going to want to fussy cut this, you can actually take this and move this around. Just another one of those little things that you can do. And I actually am looking at this and going, I think I want to make this not quite so tight in there, because again, I got to get my scissors in there to cut that out. Now the next thing I want to do is change the properties of my double stitch that's here. And that's what this is. So it's going to start here, it's going to come up here, and it's going to end down here, which is fine, but I want to make it a satin stitch instead. So right mouse, I'm going to go to Properties, and I'm going to change this from a double stitch to a satin line. Again, 2.5 is about right, 6 is fine, and I'm actually going to change the points. And this is my start point. Remember, we're starting at the bottom and go to the top, and you'll see why we're going to do that here in a little bit. I'm going to change this, and I'm going to make this, actually I'm going down, sorry. I want to make it as low as it possibly can go, which is a 30, and I'm going to do OK, and that's going to make that kind of a point. And I'm going to show you what that looks like. See what that looks like now? And I actually want to get that, I'm going to move this eventually down into his hand, but we're going to get rid of some more of these things in here, and we got to get rid of some detail and those kind of things. But that's just our start. I'm going to make my triple stitch, and I'm going to select that, and I need to get rid of this little detail in here. And because when I do this applique, that's not going to be there, and it's not really needed. So I'm going to click on Delete Points, and I'm going to get rid of these little points in here. And then the other thing I need to start thinking about is the space in here to get my scissors. And see this, I don't need all that kind of detail. Again, it's too much detail for you to try and use an applique. So now I'm going to come down here, and I'm going to look again over here, and I'm going to get rid of some of this, and I'm going to actually make some more changes here. But trying to take your scissors and cut into those spaces is pretty tough. In fact, that doesn't need to be that detailed. And I'm going to come over here to the right, and again, I'm going to get rid of some of this, and I'm going to move some of those around. Again, just mess with this a little bit. You can leave some of these. Once you're done deleting, you actually want to come in here, and you're going to do a right mouse click. So you get rid of that delete. And now I'm going to take, and I'm just going to start sliding these in here a little bit. Again, I need to get scissors in here and cut some things. So again, just make that, again, it's going to be an applique, so it's not going to be too terribly big. Now, if you notice when I'm doing this, those stitches are actually a length. And so what happens when you move this, it looks at the length of those stitches and decides what it needs to do in order to fit stitches into that space. Again, I'm just going to round that area off. I'm going to round this, and I'm going to round this. And then I'm just going to mess with this until I think I've got it so that I can actually get in here and make some changes as I need be. I'm going to actually make these rounded instead of points. Just by clicking on them, they become rounded edges instead of points. So I'm going to continue doing this, and so hang on a second. Okay, so I've kind of gone through and kind of changed some of those things so they're not quite as, well, that one's got a little bit too pointed of an area for me to get in there with a pair of scissors. Again, remember, you've got to be able to get in there and cut, so you need to be paying attention to that part of it. So now what we're going to do is I'm going to make some more changes, but I need to make this an applique. So I'm going to do, selecting my triple stitch, I'm going to do a right mouse button. I'm going to do properties, and again, I'm going to change this. I'm going to make this a satin line and leave that about what it is, applique, and this time I just want to use a white fabric. And I could go through the fabrics, but I'm just going to leave it white, just so for our purposes of doing this. So now he's kind of all white, and he's working really good for me for right now. So as I move through these, I need to make some more changes. Now on my this part, my satin line, which is my stem for the string for my rope or for my balloon, I actually want to make that a little bit smaller. And then I'm going to actually take this end and I'm going to put it into the hand. And now I need to start making some color changes here. So I can leave that just as it is if I want to, but I really want to break it apart and get my satin line so it actually sews just before I do my, I want it to sew before I lay my balloon. So I do still want it on top of here. So let's go through here and I'm going to go, I've got my satin line and it's going to sew and it's going to be perfect for that. But I need it to sew, again, it's going to sew on top of this. And so I need to move my bunny so he actually sews first. But first I'm going to do here and I'm going to do a right mouse button and I'm going to do insert color change and I'm going to make that a white thread. And I'm going to take this and I'm going to hold my control key and I want to move him to the top. So all I have to do, because I know, whoop, got that color change in the right place. I want this one. So I want to move the bunny so he sews first. So I've got my white thread, my satin line applique, and I'm going to move it to the top. And he's now going to sew above everything else. So now my balloon is going to sew, and I'm going to do some more changing here in a second, but I just wanted you to see we moved that out of the way. I now have my satin line is going to actually sew down, but on top of the rabbit. I have my balloon going on. I have the I have all of this. Now let's get a color change in here. So I'm going to go satin line applique. I'm going to do a right mouse button and I'm going to insert a color change because I'm going to go to this actually turns it into a navy, which is fine. So now that's my face part of everything that's going on. So if I want to watch this sew out, and this is something you have to learn to do, is actually watch these sew out in order for it to sew out like you want it to. It's going to do this, which is fine. It can do all of that. And then it's going to sew that, and it's going to sew that. That's exactly what you want to happen first. And you don't want anything else to happen first. That's the things that you want to happen first. So then I'm going to do cancel. And now I'm going to come in here and I need to make some changes down in the face of the rabbit. And so I actually want to have fringe in here where those are at. So I'm actually going to delete those two. And I want that to be more of a fringe. But first, let's make this guy a little bit bigger than he already is. So let's go and I'm going to do select all visible. And so I'm going to make some changes. Let's first rotate our bunny. So he's kind of sitting instead of sideways. He's kind of sitting down holding the balloon. So now I actually want to make this design a little bit larger. So I'm going to click on the down arrow on 5 block and I'm going to go scale to fit the hoop, which is going to do everything to make this larger. So now it fits right to the edge of the hoop. It just made the whole design larger than it was. Now, again, you can do some other things. but that's basically what I want to happen. I want it a little bit larger because I'm going to put it in the 240 by 150 hoop. And so when I bring it into there, it's going to almost fill up and down on the hoop. So now I need to get his little fringe in here for his face. And I'm going to come down here to the bottom. And it needs to come in just before that satin column. So I need to pick on the running stitch there, and then I'm going to insert some things. So I'm going to go to Precise Create. I don't want a pattern fill. I actually want a satin column. Actually, I could do feathered satin too, but I'm going to do a satin column, and I'm going to zoom into this area just because I need to be able to see a little bit closer. So I'm going to do satin column, and I'm going to click, and I'm going to click out here, and I'm going to click back here, and I'm going to click out here, and then I'm going to click here, and wherever you end is where your stitches are going to end up. So we're going to mess with this a little bit so that these all come in here real close. And now I'm going to go, and I'm going to go home, and I'm going to box select, and I want to move that in here. Now you're going to want to be very, very careful with this, because when you do that, these stitches here for the eye are going to sew over the top. So you really need to make sure that this is actually going to sew last. So we're going to do that here in a minute. And I'm going to do this other side, and I'm going to just do a duplicate. I'm going to slide it over here, and I'm going to flip it and put it over here. Now I want these three things I want the nose and these to sew last. So I'm going to make sure that's selected, and I've got my running stitches inside here. This is not important, so I'm going to get rid of it. I have my double stitch that takes me to there. I have my satin column, and I need to take that one. I'm going to hold my shift key and get those three items selected, and I want to move them to the bottom. I want them the last things to sew out. And I can kind of move that around just a little bit. That's so that these fringes get sewn on top of all of your other detail. When you get ready to sew this out, you're actually going to cut the bobbin thread on these. But because of the way the nose is, it's the last thing to sew, it doesn't have enough things to hold everything down. I'm going to do a right mouse button, properties, and I'm going to go in here, and I'm going to say I want a zigzag and I want an edge walk. That will help hold that fringe in place. Okay, so there's my bunny. He's going to sew completely out. Then in my satin line for the balloon, my applique for the balloon, and then I've got my triple stitch that's going to go here. I have that sewing in here. I have my eyes. I have the center of the eyes. And you're going to end up with some jump stitches because we're messing with something that already exists. There, and that should basically be it. As I was working on this, I found as I brought this over into the main part of the software and ran through the modify module and did some other things, I found that my things were just a little bit too close together. So coming in here, I actually went in and I started making some changing. Saving your EDO file is really, really important. So I wanted a little bit more space in here, so I changed some of that around a little bit. I've moved this around a little bit. It's, again, saving that stuff is just so important that you save that EDO so you can actually make changes once you see things aren't working the way you want it to. So I've got more space in here now, so I think I'm going to be fine. I'm going to now go click on the down arrow. I'm going to do copy embroidery, and I'm going to go back to the main module of the software. And I have this, my 240 by 150 hoop, but I'm not done yet. I need to make some more changes. I'm going to go over to the modify module, which is those little scissors that are down there at the bottom. And I'm going to open that up. And I'm going to do paste, so my bunny rabbit gets put in here. So now what I want to do is I actually need to go and make some add a border stitch around here so I can get that Trapunto kind of look. So I'm going to go to the border tab. I'm going to click on border embroidery. I'm going to change this to 2, so it's just outside of my sewing area. And I want to make this a triple stitch. And I'm going to do create external border. I don't want it inside, I want it on the outside. But of course it's going to go and do all of this too. But I'm going to click on that, and I'm going to change so that I don't have those inside pieces. So I'm going to go to the Home tab. I'm in the Home tab, and if you notice, I now have the 3 colors, the white for the bunny, the balloon, the facial features, and then this one. Now let's go through this step by step. So if I go step, so I'm going to go step by step for my colors. So I'm going to do this, which is my bunny. Next is my balloon, and look, I've got some extra stitches in here. I really don't want those extra stitches. So I'm going to actually go, and I need to know which way they're starting. I need to go, are they at the end or the beginning? So they happen to be at the very end. And what those are is those are running stitches to kind of help things kind of get hooked together, and I really don't want them there. And I can use these up-down arrow keys to get to that point, and I actually want to get rid of those. So I'm going to do select all visible, and I'm going to do delete. So I've got rid of those extra little stitches that are in here. So I'm going to do my next color, which is my facial features. I'm going to do the next color, which is one I want to keep, which is going to give me my Trapunto effect. And you see it's gotten in here into this area. If you're not careful, if you don't see where it comes in here like this, you may want to go back to your EDO file and spread these things out just a little bit more. But that's the color I want. So I need to make sure that that actually will sew first. So I'm going to double click on color number 4, and I'm going to make it a bright pink just so that it stands out. Not that I'm going to use that when I stitch out. And I want to move it to the very, very beginning. So I'm going to move up using my up arrow. And then I'm going to do a color sort because I don't want all these extra little pieces that are in here that are going to also stitch. I need those gone. So again, I'm going to use my little boxes down here, and if I start here, it's going to go backwards. If I start here, it's going to go forward. So if I go backwards, it's only going to look at the last color, and that is what I want to get rid of. So I'm going to do select all visible, and then I'm going to do delete. The other thing I can do in here is I can go to the modify module. Let's do this first. Draw all colors. And I can go to the modify module, and I can get rid of some of these little excess little trims. It just means that you're going to trim them from the top, but it will cut down on your jump stitches in the back. So we're going to do trim commands, remove all trim commands, and then add them back in. So we'll end up with less trim commands than we had before. If you notice, before we had a whole bunch of little trims in here. You're going to have less, but it means that there's going to be less jump stitches and things to get rid of on the back side. So now that we have this little outside area, which is going to be the first part that's going to sew, I can actually take this now, and I'm going to take this back to my main module. So I'm going to go up here to Home. I'm going to do Cut, because I don't need it there anymore. And I'm going to go to the main module of the software, and I'm going to do Paste. And there it is. Actually, I don't want to do Paste yet. I need to bring this into the Quilt Block Creator. So I'm actually going to take this, and I'm going to make it gone again, so I can actually do a cut. I'm going to Wizards. I'm going to the Quilt Block Wizard. I want Quilt Block Inner Embroidery. Do Next. I have my shape chosen as a rectangle. I have my sides. Now I'm going to make it 238 by 148, which is just under the whole quilt block. I am making sure include a cut line is not checked. Do Next. I'm going to do Paste. I'm going to do Next. And if you notice right now, the outside stitches of the bunny is outside of the sewing area of the hoop. But that's okay. We're going to make this a 0 because we want that to actually stitch right on top of those the first set of stitches that we changed to pink. We're going to do Next, and I'm going to change this to a cross hatch, and I'm going to change this to a 25, which makes it about 1 inch. And it's going to sew out really nicely. I've got some detail in here that's really good, and I'm going to do Finish. And there it is. So as we get ready to sew this out, I'm going to actually tell you some of your steps you need to pay attention to. So we're going to sew this out. And the first thing it's going to do is it's going to sew that stitch. And what you've hooped in your machine, hooped in your hoop, I'm going to stop this, is batting and your top fabric. And I just used actually it was like an off-white kind of muslin and batting. That's all I've hooped, and I made sure that it was hooped all the way around so that the hoop actually holds on to everything. So when this finishes sewing, that's your first color change, stop. Take your hoop off your machine, cut the batting only off the back side, all the way around here, all the way around. Now, when you get ready to sew the next step, what you want to do is lay a piece of cutaway stabilizer on the back of your hoop. And I actually take pins and pin in the corners all the way around so that it holds that piece of stabilizer in place. It will help give your stuff a little bit of stability. The other thing you can do is actually take and pull your backing fabric up and around the front side so you can actually pin it in place, or you can use tape. You can use whatever works for you. You can then put your hoop back on your machine, and then you can use your fix function to hold that all in place. It will help, believe me, it really works. And then you can do the rest of your design, all your appliques. And again, remember, you stop at certain points to do that. Now, last step, before you do the blue crosshatch, what you're going to do, and now I did it as a white so that it kind of blended in with my fabric. Before you do this, another thing you need to do is on the back side of your hoop again, take your hoop off your machine, back side of your hoop, lay another piece of batting and another piece of backing fabric. And now you can again pin it in place, or use some tape, put it back on your machine. If you want to use the fix function to hold it all in place, you can do that, depending on your machine, on how you can do that. Then it will then only stipple these outside, or I'm sorry, it will do the crosshatch all the way around, and it will only crosshatch the all your layers. But don't forget, you need to make sure you save your design and export it so you can stitch it out. Okay, so now that we've kind of gotten through this, when you end up, remember, this is what it's going to look like. And remember, at the back side of this, it's actually going to look appropriately. So this is all not filled in like the front is. So that's going to give you your Trapunto effect. I hope to see you actually try some of this, and thanks for watching.